What if the anxiety that haunts your quiet moments isn't a flaw, but a hidden invitation to freedom? In the stillness of a late afternoon, when the world slows and your thoughts begin to swirl, anxiety often creeps in, uninvited, like a guest who lingers too long. It is not a random storm, though it has roots, deep and tangled, in the way we hold on to life. In the heart of Buddhist wisdom, these roots are named attachment and aversion, two forces that shape our suffering, especially as we grow older and life's impermanence becomes impossible to ignore. Let me take you on a journey through this truth, one that doesn't promise to erase anxiety, but offers a path to hold it differently, a path to peace born from understanding, not resistance. This is about seeing anxiety not as your enemy, but as a teacher pointing you toward what truly matters. Anxiety doesn't strike like a bolt of lightning from a clear sky. It's more like a slow tide, rising from patterns woven into how we navigate life's changes. In the teachings of the Buddha, suffering, including anxiety, isn't something to fight but something to understand. That's a signpost, not a punishment. As we age, when the rush of daily tasks fades and we're left with more stillness, more space to feel, this signpost grows clearer. The silence of an empty house, the ache of a body that has carried you for decades, the absence of voices that once filled your days, these can stir a heaviness that presses in, not loud, but relentless. But what if this discomfort isn't proof that something is wrong with you? What if it is a doorway to something deeper? In Buddhist philosophy, the roots of anxiety are named with quiet precision: attachment and aversion. Attachment is the mind's grasping hand, clinging to what we cherish: comfort, certainty, the people we love, the version of ourselves we've known for years. As the voice that whispers, "Don't let this go. Don't let this change." Aversion, on the other hand, is the mind's recoil, pushing away what we fear or dislike: pain, loss, illness, loneliness, even the inevitability of aging. These two forces, clinging and resisting, are the twin currents that pull us into anxiety's undertow. They not abstract ideas. They the lived experience of every human heart, especially when life's seasons shift and what was once familiar begins to slip away. Think of attachment as a hand gripping tightly to a rope, afraid to let go. We hold on to routines, identities, relationships, even memories, as if they define us. But life, in its relentless flow, always changes. Your body slows, your children move away, your plans unravel. When these changes come, attachment turns to fear, crying out, "Don't take this from me." Aversion works in the opposite direction, but it is just as exhausting. It is the part of us that braces against pain, that dreads the doctor's visit, that rejects the quiet of an empty house because it feels too much like loneliness. We push and push, hoping that resistance will keep the unwanted at bay. But as the Buddha taught, whatever is subject to arising is subject to ceasing. Everything: your body, your relationships, your emotions rises and falls like waves. Clinging to what was or resisting what is only deepens our suffering. Let me share a story that brings this to life. I once knew a man named Tom, a retired Navy veteran who lived with the kind of discipline that defined him. Every morning at 6 a.m., he walked the lake trail near his home, his steps as steady as the sunrise. It wasn't just a habit. It was part of who he was, a thread woven into his identity. But when a hip injury forced him to stop, Thomas' world began to fray. He didn't just lose a routine, he lost a piece of himself, or so he thought. Anxiety crept into the mornings that once brought him peace. The quiet hours, once a sanctuary, now echoed with dread, reminding him of what he could no longer do. Over a cup of tea one afternoon, I asked him, "Tom, what are you holding on to?" He looked out the window, his voice barely above a whisper. "The version of me that could still move freely," he said. That moment was a mirror, reflecting the truth the Buddha pointed to. Our suffering isn't born from change itself, but from our refusal to let go of how things used to be. This is where anxiety takes root, in the gap between what is and what we wish could be. When we cling to the past or reject the present, anxiety slips into that space, whispering, "You're losing control." But here is the liberating truth. We never had control to begin with. Life is a river, not a statue. It moves, it shifts, it carries us forward whether we're ready or not. The lotus, as the Buddha often reminded us, grows in muddy water, yet it blooms in beauty. Our peace doesn't come from keeping everything the same. It comes from learning to open our hands, to stop grasping, to stop pushing, and to let life be what it is. You are not your routines. You are not your youth. You are not your past. And when you begin to loosen your grip on expectations, on perfection, on the need to have it all figured out, something remarkable happens. Anxiety begins to loosen its grip on you. The Dhammapada, a collection of the Buddha's sayings, puts it simply, from attachment springs grief. From attachment springs fear. But he who is free from attachment knows neither grief nor fear. This isn't about denying your feelings or pretending change doesn't hurt. It is about seeing clearly, seeing that the stories we tell ourselves, the things we cling to, are not the whole of who we are. Thomas' story didn't end with despair. Over time, he began to walk again, not the lake trail, but a shorter path in his garden. He let go, just a little, of the man he used to be and found joy in the man he was becoming. He started noticing the birds in his yard, the warmth of the sun on his hands. Peace, he discovered, wasn't in getting his old life back, but in meeting the present moment with open arms. So what does this mean for you? If anxiety visits you in the quiet of your days, don't see it as a failure. See it as a teacher, pointing you toward the places where you're holding too tightly or pushing too hard. Ask yourself, what am I clinging to? What am I resisting? Maybe it is a role you no longer play, a body that feels unfamiliar, a future you can't predict. Whatever it is, try this. Take a breath, soften your grip, and whisper, this is not the whole of me. That you don't have to fix everything or fight the tide. You just have to let the river flow. This truth is the heart of Buddhist wisdom, but it is also the heart of being human. We suffer when we try to freeze life in place, when we believe we are only our routines, our youth, our plans. But you are more than that. You are the awareness that holds every change, the sky that embraces every storm. Anxiety may come, but it doesn't own you. By letting go of attachment and aversion, even just a little, you make space for peace, not a peace that depends on everything staying the same, but a peace that lives within you, steady and unshaken no matter what comes. So, the next time anxiety knocks, don't run. Meet it with gentleness, with curiosity, with the question, what are you here to teach me? Because in that moment, you're not just surviving, you're stepping into freedom. What if the thoughts that keep you up at night aren't as real as they feel? In the quiet moments before dawn, or in the hum of a crowded afternoon, a single thought can slip in, heavy and uninvited, whispering, something is wrong, or shouting, what if this never gets better? Before you know it, you're no longer here. In this moment, you're trapped inside that thought, lost in a world of shadows and tension. But what if there is a way to step out of that world, to see those thoughts for what they truly are? Fleeting, not facts. In the gentle clarity of Buddhist wisdom, there is a teaching so simple yet so powerful it can unravel anxiety at its root. This too is just a thought. Let me guide you through this idea, not to erase your worries, but to help you hold them lightly, like clouds passing across the vast sky of your mind. This is about freedom to be who you are, beyond the stories your thoughts tell. Anxiety often feels like a storm that engulfs us, but in the teachings of the Buddha, it is not the storm itself that causes our suffering, it is our belief in it. Thoughts, especially anxious ones, have a way of convincing us they read the truth. They arrive with a racing heart, a tight chest, and a mind that spins, and we mistake them for reality. But pause for a moment. Not every thought is true. Not every thought deserves your trust. Some are echoes of old fears, habits of worry passed down like heirlooms, or simply the mind doing what it has done for years, scanning, protecting, imagining. A thought, no matter how loud or persistent, is not a fact. It is a passing cloud, a ripple on the surface of your awareness, not the ocean itself. This truth lies at the heart of Buddhist philosophy, particularly in the practice of non-identification. It's the wisdom of knowing that your thoughts are not who you are. They movements in the mind, like wind rustling through leaves, some helpful, some not, but none of them define your essence. The Buddha, in his quiet clarity, offered this liberating thought. This too is just a thought. It's a reminder that anxiety, as overwhelming as it feels, often begins with a single spark, a thought that gains power only when we believe it without question. The practice isn't to suppress these thoughts or shame yourself for having them. It's to see them clearly, to say, I see you, thought. You're trying to protect me, to warn me, but you're not reality, and you're not in charge. Let me share a story that brings this to life. There was a woman named Marlene, 76 years old, widowed, and navigating a quieter life than she'd known for decades. After her husband passed, a strange kind of fear began to take hold. She'd sit in her living room, alone, and thoughts would flood in. What if I fall and no one's there? What if I forget to turn off the stove? What if I start losing my memory? These weren't irrational fears. They were grounded in possibility, but they weren't happening. They were thoughts, arriving with a pounding heart and a racing mind, convincing her they were the truth. Marlene began attending mindfulness classes at her local senior center, skeptical but willing to try. One afternoon, her instructor asked the group to write down a simple sentence. This thought is not me. It is just a thought. At first, it felt silly, like a child's game. But over time, this became Marlene's anchor. Each time fear arose, she'd repeat it gently. This thought is not me. It is just a thought. Slowly, like a knot coming undone, the grip of those fears began to loosen. Marlene's story isn't unique. It is the story of anyone who has ever felt trapped in their own mind. Her fears were real, but they were magnified by her belief that they defined her. The practice of non-identification taught her to step back, to stand beside her thoughts rather than inside them. This shift, small as it seems, is everything. It's the difference between being swept away by a river and standing on its bank, watching it flow. As the great teacher Ajahn Chah once said, if you let go a little, you'll have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you'll have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, you'll be free. This practice is about letting go not of the thought itself, but of the belief that it owns you. So, how do you bring this into your own life? It starts with noticing. The next time anxiety rises, pause. Take a breath. Feel your feet on the floor, the air moving through your nose. Then name the thought. Maybe it is I am not enough, or what if everything falls apart? Whatever it is, say to yourself, this too is just a thought. You're not denying the feeling, you're seeing it for what it is. A visitor, not a resident. You might even imagine it as a cloud drifting across the sky of your mind. It's there, but it doesn't define the sky. Passes as all clouds do. This practice isn't about forcing calm or emptying your mind. It's about creating space, a moment of clarity where you remember. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that holds them. This teaching resonates deeply because it speaks to a truth we all feel. Our minds are busy, restless, and often unkind. Especially as we age, when life slows and there is more time to reflect, thoughts can feel louder, more insistent. But they still just thoughts. They not your essence, your worth, or your truth. I've seen this in my own moments of doubt, when worry creeps in like a fog. Repeating this too is just a thought is like turning on a light. It doesn't make the fog disappear, but it shows you the path through it. It reminds you that you're bigger than your fears, vast as the sky, steady as the earth beneath your feet. The beauty of this practice is its simplicity. You don't need a meditation cushion or a quiet retreat. You can do it while washing dishes, walking to the mailbox, or lying awake at 3 a.m. When a thought arrives, heavy with worry, meet it with gentleness. Say, this is just a thought, no battle, no panic. You're not fighting the thought, you're freeing yourself from its grip. Over time, this becomes a habit, a quiet strength that grows within you. The thoughts may still come, but they lose their power to define you. You begin to live not in the world of your thoughts, but in the world of this moment, alive, whole and free. So here is my invitation to you. The next time anxiety whispers, don't believe it blindly. Pause, breathe, and remind yourself this too is just a thought. Let it pass as it will. Because you are not the storm, you are the sky, vast and unshaken, holding every cloud with grace. What would your life feel like if you trusted that truth? Keep this practice close and let it guide you back to the peace that has always been yours. Have you ever noticed how anxiety steals you from the moment you re-in? It's like a draft slipping under the door, barely noticeable at first, but soon it chills the warmth of now. A flicker of unease while sipping your morning coffee, a tightness in your chest while folding laundry. Anxiety pulls you into the cold corridors of what if or what was. But what if there's a way to come back, to find peace right where you stand? In the gentle wisdom of Buddhist teachings, mindfulness offers a doorway home, anchoring you in the present through your breath, your body, your very being. This isn't about silencing your mind. It is about meeting life as it is, with open-hearted attention. Let me share how this practice can transform the quiet hum of worry into a sacred return to the only place peace truly lives. Right here, right now. Mindfulness, as the Buddha taught, isn't about forcing stillness or emptying your thoughts. It is about becoming intimate with what is, noticing the rise and fall of your breath, the sensations in your body, the dance of your thoughts, all with loving, non-judgmental attention. It is learning to be where your feet are, instead of lost in yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's fears. The Buddha said, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." This speaks directly to anxiety's trick. It is always reaching forward, predicting, protecting, preparing. But the present moment asks nothing of you except to be here. And in that simplicity lies freedom. Consider Frank, a retired carpenter, quiet and gentle, whose story might feel familiar. After his wife passed, the stillness of his home turned into an echo chamber of worry. Small thoughts spiraled. What if I forget something important? What if I fall and no one finds me? What if I am a burden to my kids? These fears took root in the empty hours, pulling him from the present into a maze of dread. On his doctor's advice, Frank joined a local mindfulness group, though he was skeptical. At his first session, the teacher asked them to sit, close their eyes, and simply follow their breath, not to change it, just to notice it. Frank later shared, "At first, all I heard was my noisy thoughts. But then I felt my breath, heard the birds outside, felt the warmth in my hands." That was his turning point. Each breath became an anchor, each moment a chance to return. Frank's practice was simple. 5 minutes a day, sitting in his garden, hands on his knees, eyes soft, breath steady. He didn't try to clear his mind. He watched it like clouds drifting across the sky. Over time, the clouds grew lighter. This is mindfulness's power. It doesn't promise to erase struggles, but it teaches you to sit with them without fear. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it. If your mind drifts, that is okay. The moment you notice, you've already returned. That noticing is the practice, that return is the victory. For many, especially in later years when routine's quiet and solitude grows, anxiety sneaks in, lingering like an unwelcome guest. But you don't need to fight it. Instead, offer your breath. Feel your feet on the floor, the warmth of sunlight, the rhythm of your inhale and exhale. This isn't denial, it is a sacred act of presence. As Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us, feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. Try it now. Breathe in, feel your chest rise, and as you exhale, whisper, "I am here, and here is enough." Mindfulness is forgiving, practical, and deeply human. It meets you in the mess of life, when the dishes pile up, when the ache in your bones whispers of time's passage. In those moments, pause. Notice your breath, the world around you. You're not running from anxiety. You're choosing to be present with it. This practice has carried me through my own restless nights, reminding me that peace isn't found in fixing everything, it is found in being here, fully, with an open heart. So, when anxiety visits, don't resist. Anchor yourself in this moment. It is the only place where you are whole, alive, and free. What would it feel like to trust that? What if the harshest voice in your head isn't the truth, but a habit you can unlearn? Anxiety often arrives with a cruel companion, a whisper that says, "Why are you like this? You should be stronger." You're a burden. This inner critic doesn't just amplify fear, it buries you in shame. But in the tender wisdom of Buddhist teachings, there is a radical antidote: compassion, not just for others, but for yourself. It is a medicine for the heart, a gentle hand that softens anxiety's grip. This I senti about indulgence, it is about truth, about meeting your pain with the kindness you'd offer a dear friend. Let me guide you through this practice, one that can turn anxiety from a prison into a path toward peace, rooted in the simple act of being present for your own heart. Anxiety's sting is sharpest when it is paired with self-judgment. That voice, the one that scolds you for feeling afraid, for not having it together, it is not the world talking. It is you echoing old lessons from a time when emotional needs were silenced, when strength meant stoicism and self-sacrifice was noble. For many, especially older adults, life was spent caring for others' children, partners, aging parents, while quietly shelving your own pain, fatigue, and needs. Now, in the stillness of later years, when there is space to feel, everything you postponed rushes in: anxiety, guilt, grief, regret. But Buddhist wisdom offers a lifeline. You yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. These words from the Buddha aren't a luxury, they are a necessity, a call to soften the war within. Consider Ruth, a 79-year-old retired nurse who'd always been the strong one, the rock for her family and patients. After losing her sister, waves of anxiety crashed in, and with them a deep sense of shame. Why now, she asked herself. I've always kept it together. At a mindfulness retreat, a teacher invited the group to place their hands on their hearts and silently repeat, "May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I accept myself just as I am." Ruth's first try was halting, her chest tightened, tears welled. It felt selfish, unfamiliar. But the teacher's gentle reminder shifted something. Self-compassion I senti about ego. It is about not turning away from your pain. That moment sparked Ruth's healing. She began writing letters to herself, forgiving the days she was too tired, too overwhelmed, too hurt to reach out. Slowly, she felt whole again, not because anxiety vanished, but because she no longer faced it alone. Compassion is a practice, a medicine you take regularly, especially when anxiety's symptoms flare. It is speaking kindly to yourself when fear arises, swapping "What's wrong with me? For this is hard, and I am doing my best." It is placing a hand over your heart in anxious moments, a physical reminder you're not abandoned. It is offering yourself the grace you'd give a friend, because if you wouldn't say it to them, why say it to yourself? Acknowledge your effort. You've survived so much, and you're still here, learning, growing. That matters. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, when you love someone, the best thing you can offer is your presence. How can you love if you are not there? The same holds for yourself. If you're not present for your pain, who will be? This practice has carried me through my own moments of doubt, when the inner critic grows loud. Placing a hand on my heart, whispering, "It is okay to feel this," feels like coming home. It doesn't fix everything, but it changes how I move through it. For you, it might start small. Next time anxiety knocks, pause. Breathe. Offer it a seat, not to fix it, but to hold it gently like a frightened child. Ask what it needs. Try saying, "I'm here for you," and feel the shift. Compassion transforms anxiety into a path, walked with tenderness, not opposition. So, when that harsh voice whispers, meet it with kindness. You're not broken, you're human, and you're worthy of your own love. What would it feel like to believe that? What if the anxiety that feels like you is just a guest passing through? In those piercing moments when fear wraps around your heart, it is easy to believe it defines you: the racing pulse, the spinning thoughts, the weight in your chest. You might whisper, "I am anxious," as if it is your essence. But over 2,500 years ago, the Buddha offered a profound truth to unhook us from this suffering. This is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I am. This simple phrase, rooted in the teaching of non-self, I senti about denying your feelings. It is about liberating you from their grip. Let me guide you through this transformative thought, one that can dissolve anxiety's hold like sunlight clearing fog, reminding you that you are not your fear, but the vast awareness that holds it. Anxiety can feel all-consuming, as if it is woven into your very being. But in the Buddhist text, the Anatalakkhana Sutta, the Buddha teaches that we are not our thoughts, feelings, or sensations. Just as the sky I senti the storm, you are not your anxiety. When we cling to fear, thinking it is part of our identity, it gains power. But when we say, "This is not me," we reclaim our true nature, vast, peaceful, unbound. This phrase I senti a rejection of your experience. It is a gentle release from the false belief that you are your suffering. It is a lighthouse in the fog, guiding you back to the truth. You are the observer, not the turbulence. Consider Walter, an 82-year-old widower whose story might resonate. After losing his wife, anxiety became a constant companion, a gnawing dread in his chest he couldn't name. "It feels like I am disappearing into the fear," he once said. At a mindfulness group, the instructor led a meditation, softly repeating, "This is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I am." Walter sat quietly, hand over his heart, echoing the words in his mind. As the tension in his chest began to loosen, something shifted, not dramatically, but enough to let him breathe deeper. In the weeks that followed, he used this practice daily. When anxiety arose, he'd acknowledge it. "Ah, here it is again." Then, breathing slowly, he'd repeat, "This is not who I am." Each time, the storm grew less fierce. This practice doesn't promise to banish anxiety, it offers freedom within it. The Buddha never said we escape fear or sorrow, but he showed us how to avoid unnecessary suffering. Break down the phrase, "This is not mine," means you don't own the emotion, it's not yours to defend, just a wave arising. "This is not me" reminds you that you're not defined by this feeling, you're not broken. "This is not who I am" points to your essence, steady, compassionate awareness beneath the fear. Try it when anxiety visits, pause, breathe, and say, "This is not mine. This is not me. This is not who I am." You might notice the emotion lingers, but its power to define you fades. You shift from being in the storm to being the sky that holds it. I've leaned on this practice in my own moments of unrest, when worry feels like it's swallowing me whole. Whispering these words is like stepping back, seeing the fear as a cloud, not the sky. It's freeing, not because the cloud vanishes, but because I remember I am bigger than it. For you, it's a tool for any moment when the silence feels heavy, when loss stings, when uncertainty looms. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. This phrase is your anchor, too. The older we grow, the more this matters. Aging brings uncertainties, changing bodies, goodbyes, quiet days. But none diminish who you are. Repeat this mantra when anxiety knocks, not as a weapon, but as a bomb. You're not your fear, you're the calm beneath the wave, the sky holding every cloud. So, when anxiety whispers, meet it with this truth. What would it feel like to know you're already whole, no matter what passes through? What if peace I sent found in a perfect moment, but in the messy, ordinary ones you're living right now? Anxiety often strikes when life feels raw, when the dishes pile up, the phone rings with silence, or the ache of time reminds you of what's changed. In those moments, the Buddhist teaching "this is not mine, this is not me, this is not who I am" becomes more than a thought, it's a lifeline, a way to weave presence into the fabric of your day. The Buddha's wisdom was never meant for mountaintops or monasteries alone, it's for the marketplace, the kitchen, the quiet hours when your heart trembles. Let me guide you through a simple, powerful practice to carry this truth into your daily life, anchoring you in the present and reminding you that you are whole no matter what visits your mind. The beauty of this practice lies in its accessibility. It meets you where you are, whether you're awake at 3 a.m. with a heavy chest or worrying about a child who hasn't called. It's not about escaping anxiety or chasing perfection, it's about living with presence, even in the mess and miracle of everyday moments. The phrase "this is not mine, this is not me, this is not who I am" is a bridge back to the joy of now. As Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us, the present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it. Let us begin with a practice you can try right now, one that's gentle yet transformative. Find a quiet moment. Sit comfortably, or if you're standing, let your feet rest fully on the floor. There is no need to force anything, let your body be as it is. Breathe in slowly, then out, feeling your breath like a soft hand on your back, grounding you. Now, call to mind something stirring anxiety, a small worry that hums in the background, or a larger weight, like a regret or an uncertain future. Don't judge it, just hold it gently like a stone in your palm. As you sit with this feeling, softly say, out loud or in your heart, "This is not mine." Pause. Let it sink in. "This is not me." Pause again, feeling the space between you and the emotion. "This is not who I am." Breathe. With each repetition, notice the grip loosening, maybe just a little. You're not denying the feeling, you're witnessing it without claiming it, like watching a guest who doesn't own the house. Imagine your breath as a current of air moving through an open room, airing out the worry without pushing it away. The house steady, grounded, whole as you. The anxious thought is just a visitor, here for a while, but it doesn't hold the keys. This practice isn't confined to meditation cushions, it's for the moments when life feels heavy, when you wake in the night, when the ache in your joints whispers of time, when you wonder if you've done enough. In those moments, don't reach for control. Reach for presence. Breathe in, "This is not mine." Breathe out, "This is not me." Breathe again, "This is not who I am." Then return to what's before you, washing a cup, petting the dog, listening to the wind outside. This makes the practice seamless, not a separate act, but a way of walking through life. I've turned to this in my own restless moments when worry feels like a knot I can't untie. Repeating these words, I feel my nervous system soften, whispering, Yuri safe now. It's not about erasing the worry, it's about remembering I am not trapped in it. For you, this can be a daily anchor. The more you practice, the more you realize Yuri not drowning in what-ifs or lost in the past. Yuri here, breathing, alive, whole. Anxiety may visit, but it doesn't define you. Welcome it like a guest you no longer fear, and remind it, this is not who I am. What would your days feel like if you carried this truth, knowing Yuri, already home in every moment? Take a moment now, wherever you are, and just breathe. Feel the air move through you, grounding you in this very moment. What you've heard today, I sent just a set of ideas. It's a doorway, a gentle reminder that anxiety doesn't define you. It is a sacred call to let go of what weighs you down and come home to your true self, whole and unbroken. The Buddha never promised a life without storms, but he gave us tools to stand steady within them, the wisdom to see thoughts as passing clouds, the courage to meet pain with compassion, the strength to say, this is not mine, not me. Not who I am. Carry this with you when the night feels long, when worry tightens your chest, when life's uncertainties loom. Speak these truths with tenderness, not as a weapon, but as a balm. Ask yourself, what would your life feel like if you trusted Yuri already enough, just as you are? If this resonates, share your story below. Your words might light someone else's path. Keep walking gently, breathing deeply, and know that peace is always within reach because who you are has never been touched by fear.